mean, there's no surprise of what this podcast is going to be primarily about. I think a lot of people want to hear our thoughts on this debate that we witnessed on Thursday.
Right.
Do you want to just get right into it? Do you want to tell me about the week like normal, or what do you want to start with, Mon?
Well, it's up to you. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. We can get into it if you want to, because you told me you wanted to focus on that. And I said, to me, the Supreme Court rulings were far more impactful than the debate.
Well, we'll talk about that stuff at the end.
Not impactful, but yeah.
We'll talk about that stuff at the end. I think most people have asked, what are our thoughts on the debate? So first things first, because you and I talked, I guess to talk about my week, I had to do a 3-hour drive, 6-hour drive. And I talked to Mom before, like literally I'm driving to the debate to watch the debate.
Right.
And we were talking about beforehand on how we think it's going to go. First thing I want to say, so in other words, what I'm saying is we haven't talked about it since the debate actually happened. I don't know if you feel the same way. I thought CNN did a fantastic job facilitating that. Would you agree? Like, I thought they did a very good job at letting certain people, like the mic cutoffs. I expected them to give Biden more time, but no, I thought they were very good about facilitating that.
Well, I thought, I didn't mind the format. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't mind the fact that there was not a lot of fact checking going on, because you could fact check everybody and it kind of ruins the flow of the debate.
Yep.
In answer to your question, my understanding is they were cutting, and I didn't use a timer. I wasn't that interested to say, how fair they being, but some comments were made that they would cut Joe's mic before he would start to ramble. I don't know if it was a timing issue that they did it or if he was actually rambling.
I literally said, because I was watching it with Aunt Sue and Uncle Jerry, I did feel like Trump got a lot more time. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I felt like he got quite a bit more time. Or maybe Joe was just so slow at answering, it felt like Trump was going on for a long period of time, if that makes sense. Like, he was so much better spoken that, you know what it is? As Biden's speaking, you're like, please be done, because you know it's going to go off the rails. Whereas Trump, it's like, okay, let's just, like, he's getting all of his thoughts out. But I thought the way I kind of want to break this down is let's go talk about CNN, how they did, then we'll talk about Biden or Trump, and then we'll talk about the other one, right? Do it that way. So I thought, to the fact checking point, I knew that this week, after, like, from Thursday going into next week, it's going to be all the fact checking. That's not a surprise. I think the real kick in the face, well, I mean, I guess that's when we talk about Joe, but yeah, I mean, I just thought that was probably people did a comparison between the original debate between the two back in 2020, and then this one, and it was night and day. It goes to show that our current president's not making very many decisions, and I think a lot of people learned that yesterday. But yeah, CNN, I thought, did a fantastic job. I thought they were going to be so much more biased with their questions and stuff. So.
Yeah, I didn't find the questions to be bad. I thought the one about their age turned out, maybe it wasn't their intention, but it was a joke when they asked it, based on the fact that 16, 17 minutes into the debate, they're asking if their age has any influence. And you could just hear all of America laughing hysterically, sitting on the sofa for what they had just witnessed for the first 16 minutes before that question.
Right.
Age wasn't even, what are you talking about? You got somebody with dementia up there and you're asking if his age is impacting him, let alone the other guy who, regardless of how you feel about him, is at least cognitive and able to function as only Trump can function.
That's what that really showed. That's what that showed. I think every American, and I called my very liberal friend from the gym the other day, and we talked about it. He said, yeah, I mean, if you were to ask, he said that it was a terrible loss for the Democrats. But yeah, I think that swayed quite a few votes on Thursday. Maybe not for Trump or Biden, but I mean, maybe people are starting to look more RFK a little bit.
When you and I spoke beforehand, I don't know if you recall, I was really, frankly, more interested in how Trump was going to do, because
you can start with Trump.
if anybody's been listening to our podcast, and I'll tell you, this is the biggest issue I have. Anybody who has supported this particular president or current president, or can't understand what everybody's the MAGA people or the conservative people are talking about with him. Okay, if you have no right to complain about what you saw, and if you do, you should be complaining to every media station you watch and turning it off. You should be complaining about yourself for not knowing,
Yeah.
because every world leader has known this. And as much as last week, they were still trying to say, oh, deep fakes, or they were doing fakes with all these videos with Biden being led around the stage by
Yeah.
Obama literally a week ago. Okay. This has not been hidden. And a group of people who agree with me, they've been saying, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and you're biased, and Biden's fine. Well, you know what? Biden wanted this debate. And I think there's a lot more behind the scenes that was going on than the debate itself. It really wasn't about what Biden was going to say or do. Too many people knew he was going to fail. There was
Yeah.
no way they knew that man walking out on that stage beforehand, even a half hour beforehand, knew that this was a disaster, a setup of some sort.
I was watching
So,
Ben Shapiro say, and he brought up again, if it's true, like I guess he was talking to one of his friends that's a neurosurgeon, neuroscientist, and basically you can see it where Biden has a really rough start and then starts, like you can see the gears start turning. And the guy said it looks like the drugs that they gave him were too close to time, and they didn't realize that there would be a lag period, which is why it didn't kick in till later. Because after the debate, if you saw, again, I don't want to go too far ahead, but if you see him and Jill after that, they did a post press conference, if you will.
yep.
He's very lively. He's talking fine. It's like, hey, clearly the drugs did not kick in until after that debate. So,
Right.
yeah. But, excuse me, back to Trump
Uh,
real fast. I think, I, as you said, I think the way that they did that format was actually, I think they thought that would bite Trump in the ass, but it definitely did not. That helped him a lot. It made him stop rambling, and he couldn't go on. And I do think that both presidents respected the rules very well. Of once that mic's cut, you're done. There's no real comebacks or whatever. The one thing, there's two things that I would criticize Trump over, and you tell me if you agree, but and this is where his ego comes into play. Biden would attack him on something, then they would ask a new question, and then instead of answering the question to start, Trump says, well, let me go back to this. And that's fine. But there were a couple times where it was like, you don't have to respond to that. Then now it's just your ego talking. And some of those questions were sort of important. The only one that I understand that he skipped was the abortion one. Because to this day, we've never really gotten a clear answer from him on the abortion from a law
I think the
perspective.
only one he completely didn't answer was about the Palestinian state.
Right. That's the one that,
The
yeah,
Palestinian state.
the abortion one he kind of
No,
skimmed
he
over.
answered the abortion question.
Yeah, he
He
did.
answered it.
But that was the first one where it was like, where they had to repeat the question. Let's put it that way. But the Palestinian one, yeah, that's a tough one because that's a loss either way. Whoever wants to answer that one, 50% of the world's going to hate you, 50% will like you.
I don't think it was intentional by Trump, because he was answering a previous question. He used the time for that.
Yeah, which is allowed.
So I don't think he was evading that question, if you will. I don't
Yeah.
think Trump evades any question. I just think he gets, as I said, I was watching it for him because I knew Biden was going to be a disaster. And Donald Trump knew he was going to be a disaster. And he needed the world to see that, because the mainstream media doesn't report it. Nobody's been talking about it except for sites like us and maybe the Joe Rogan, certain sites that are not considered quote unquote mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Axios put an article out, and their title from it was, "What is the White House is hiding the truth." Shame on a journalist for saying that. Axios is a journalist, and it's pretty well-known political journalist. Shame on them. Shame on all these journalists now who were shocked by what happened. That, to me, is what I wanted to see from this debate. Okay. And for all the individuals out there who were shocked by it, that's a wake-up call to you. You have been lied to, and you have been not, facts have been hidden from you by our mainstream media. And now going forward, it's shame on you if you continue to watch the same people, listen to the same sources, because you have been blatantly lied to. And honestly, Chris, if you go on social media, and we've seen it since he's been in the presidency, he's fallen downstairs repeatedly. It wasn't a one-off. And just within the last month. You got world leaders who know how bad he is. It's been an embarrassment to our country and, frankly, a threat. He's a non-issue on the stage, or on the world stage, I should say. And we go back to, you can talk about how long the medicines wore off. Did he get them soon enough? Too late? Whatever. This is the commander in chief of our nation. He should not be on any medication,
Right.
other than maybe diabetes or something that does not have anything to do
Right.
with his cognitive abilities. So I think that's like the biggest takeaway from this debate. Not just that Joe Biden did badly. It was how badly he did it and how they allowed that to happen.
Yeah, on his home turf. Like that's how bad it was of being CNN siding with them. Now with Democrats, but
Wanted the debate. The Biden people wanted that
which
debate.
was probably his biggest mistake. My liberal friend, as I told you, John, from the gym, he said it really well. He said Trump didn't beat Biden, Biden beat Biden, and that's why he agrees. Like Biden did such a poor job. So
There is nothing for Trump to claim victory over, because he knew going into it. It was like getting in a fight with an old man. You can't. I mean,
yeah.
and that's you could call that arrogance, but I think I will give Trump credit for handling it as well as he did and not going with a lot of low blows.
Yep.
And not doing what, frankly, they deserve for having that man in our White House. Frankly, they deserve.
Well, you said it when we talked on the phone. I mean, the current president has tried to if I was in Trump's position of looking at the guy that's trying to put me in jail for just being an opponent at this point, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't take more low blows. Even I would do some low blows if you're doing that. You know what I mean? But for Trump, I mean, it was so one-sided. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. They've been doing polls like crazy and like walking up to people who clearly are Democrats and saying how they do, and they say Biden did terrible. So you're really seeing a swing. But I forget what you said before, but I was going to add on to it. But basically what I'm saying is, or what I wanted to say was basically, I think that this was the eye opener to those people that only get their news on, or they see these clips on social media of Biden falling, and it's like, oh, that's just a one-off thing that happens. It happens to everyone, which it does, no question about it. But this was the real wake-up call for, oh, something is up with this current president, and someone's making the decisions. It is not him. It can't be him. So,
right. And it's embarrassing that a portion of our nation has to catch up with what the rest of the world already knows.
Yeah.
That's what's so sad to me as a citizen. We've watched this unfold basically from when he was put in a basement the summer of the election.
COVID, that was the
Why? COVID. It wasn't COVID. They did it for a reason. And now here we are, fast forward to how absolutely pathetic he is. No, I don't feel sorry for him at all, because, you know, we know how corrupt he has been. We know that he should never have been in that office. And now we got to wonder if they're going to be able to get him even out.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that after. But the other thing that really surprised me that Trump said that I didn't think would come out of his mouth was the golf argument where Biden said he had a 6 handicap, and Trump goes, "That's the biggest lie you've said all day."
Yeah.
But what really struck me was when Trump said, let's not argue like children. I would have never expected that to come out of his mouth. I thought Biden would have said something like that. So it just kind of goes to show that Trump was I'm sure they went in the game plan of, you have to be composed for this. You can't just, as long as you don't have outbursts and ramble, you're good, right? And I think that's what it was. So I was very impressed. And I know a lot of Democrats are impressed with how Trump did from a composure standpoint. Almost, some would say, a growth, if you will, from 2020.
Given what he was up against, I think Trump knew, I can't, it will not help me. Just let it unfold for the American people. Let them see what the media's been hiding from them. Let them see what everybody's been calling me crazy about for asking for cognitive.
Right.
Let them see it. I don't know if he didn't look shocked to me, but I don't know if even the Republican or the conservative news people were shocked. Which again, I'm like, shame on you for being that shocked, for being that something that you should have known. Now back to what I was saying. I don't think Donald Trump was going to quote unquote win that no matter what. You just had to have a pulse to beat Biden
Yeah.
not let's say in that debate. My concern with Donald Trump is how is he going to do if it's somebody else?
Mhm.
Okay. And he still is doing the same old, same old. They know how to push Trump's buttons, put him on the defense.
Yep.
Let him spend his time talking about how wronged he was, how he deserved better, how crooked everything is. And I'm not saying he's wrong. He's absolutely right. But he has to move on and start giving me more facts,
Right.
giving us independence.
So that's what I said. This is the problem with how Trump talks, and we've talked about this many times. He talks in absolutes. We were the greatest nation. We were the greatest this. We were the greatest that. Maybe there's some evidence behind that, but when it comes to these debates, when you start going up against someone that's really going to throw out statistics, people say Newsom would probably crush him in an actual like talking point. Everyone hates Newsom, but from a talking perspective, they think Newsom would starch him. Maybe that's true. I don't know, but you can't.
I don't know. I just saw Adam Carolla practically put Gavin Newsom in put Newsom in tears, asking him, "Why'd you close the beaches during COVID?"
But that's just what I've heard people throw out there. And maybe that's true. I don't think Trump would do well with statistics. Maybe he would, but when you talk in absolutes with everything, we were the greatest economy, we were the greatest this, we were the greatest that, it's very hard for these fact checkers that are the 29 fact checkers that are there to not go up like a red flag, right?
Well, he does do it. And the few times he does it, like he had the perfect answer for January 6th. On January 6th, I gave you a perfect economy. He quoted the employment rate at the time, the inflation rate at the time. I think GDP at the time. So that's good. That's substantive.
Agreed, but it gets over
every time because they put him on the defense.
Right.
They know how to push his button.
Right.
And when he throws out about Stormy Daniels and you're a convicted felon.
I did not sleep with the porn star.
Right. I mean, he's absolutely right to say, I'm convicted felon, whatever. Or to turn around and say, apologize for the Hunter Biden laptop. You stood on this podium and you said to the American people that it was fake, that it was a hoax. And now your own Department of Justice is using it as evidence. So it was never fake. It was never a hoax. You mocked me. That's the kind of stuff. Again, it opens the eyes of the American people. Biden brought up Charlottesville. Snoke just recently, what was it, 2 weeks ago, came out and said, yeah, we fact checked it. Trump never said those things about the Nazis.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 years later? But that Biden would actually bring that up, or his people would put that on a card for him to bring it up. They're lucky there wasn't a fact checker there because Trump has to tell them. But again, it's all defense. He's got to get more. And I don't mind him saying we're in a terrible place as a nation, but he'll say that 3 times in the 1 minute that he has to make his case. Tell me once. Now give me more. Give me more substance. That's the kind of thing. But nobody's going to tell Trump how to debate. There is no person telling him what to do.
Maybe family, but that's...
No, I don't even think it's family.
Damn.
And if you notice, Trump doesn't bring one card with him.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
He never has any
really looks
data,
at
nothing. Right.
Yeah.
Not to say that many of them do. As I recall, I don't think Hillary Clinton did, but there was always that question, did she have an earpiece? Then I heard, did Biden have an earpiece and it fell out? Those are the kind of things they're not supposed to have, and we'll never know because nobody ever, whatever. But Trump doesn't need it if he's not going to spill out a lot of facts, right?
Which is why he talks in these absolutes. But the other, I mean, we've kind of, I thought even then Trump still did a fantastic job. I would have liked to see a couple more of the questions that didn't affect his ego get answered, like the Palestine stuff, which that's a tough one to answer because you're screwed either way. So that was one that I understand not answering. But I do think that I think CNN did a great job at keeping their hands off, but there were a couple times where I was like, hey, can we stay on topic here? But we knew that was going to happen going in. That wasn't a surprise.
The only question that could create a certain amount of jeopardy in the election right now was the abortion question. And everybody knew that because we all know their opinion on Palestine. We all know the opinion, we know what Biden's doing, blah, 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 blah. And interestingly enough, I'm fine with how Trump's position on it because that has become the party position, or it should be the party position.
Right.
Roe v. Wade was put it back to the states. Let the states decide. Meanwhile, I got the Democrat finally admitting, then what is your cutoff? 9 months.
Yeah.
Literally to the end of the. All right, so finally we got on the record of a Democrat saying that's their cutoff between a doctor and a woman, but she can have that abortion at 9 months. And Trump was saying, 9 months and a day if they want. They'll put the baby to the
Yeah,
side.
which people on Twitter were saying that's not true. That never happened. You can go look, right? They were going to do that in, I believe it was Virginia and California. They were strongly considering after birth. They didn't have it on paper. So to their point, I mean, it was definitely talked about. It might not have been law, but they were literally talking about aborting a baby after it's born.
Right, and there are many on the pro-abortion side who are fine with that. They're okay with that. It's their decision to do that.
Yeah.
Now they're extremists, but they're always trying to back the Republican candidate, whoever they are, in a corner. And instead of going on offense, they go on defense. And Trump is learning. He's learning. You got to go on offense. Here's our position. Let the states decide. But meanwhile, what's the Democratic position? Is it 8 months? Is it 8 weeks? 15? What's your answer? Because they all squawked at 15 weeks. And guess what? That's what they have in Europe.
Yeah.
That's their legislation. And everybody was fine with that. We should be like Europe. And then when some of these red states said, all right, 15 weeks, oh, you can't do that. So finally, to me, that's a major issue because that's the one that swayed so many voters in 2022 because of Roe v. Wade being taken down. Right? That we were supposed to have the red tsunami. And then all of a sudden they made abortion an issue. Well, they're going to hammer it hard this time, especially if they're stuck with Biden as the candidate. They're going to come out hard and they're going to make everybody's life feel like you can't get up in the morning unless you have your abortion issue settled. Right. Like it's the most important thing in the world.
The other question that I had for you, because I didn't have the facts on it at the time and I haven't had the time to look, they talked about the January 6th stuff, and then Trump started mentioning something about Nancy Pelosi coming clean on doing something.
Yeah.
Do we have any evidence of that, or was that just?
Yes.
So what exactly happened?
About a week or two ago, they released the daughter's tape in the limousine with Nancy Pelosi, and Nancy was saying exactly what he said. I'm responsible for it. I let this happen. I'm paraphrasing, but I was responsible for what just happened. So they must have been moving her. Remember, she had her documentary team held by her daughter. They were moving her maybe from one location to the next. And you can Google it. She was going on and on about, I'm responsible for this. It's my fault, blah, blah, blah.
Really? Wow. I'm going to have to find that video because if that's true, I mean, how's that not out somewhere? Like how's that not in mainstream media, even at least on Fox? Yes. But yeah, that's surprising. But so we talked about Trump. I think Trump's kind of went exactly as we thought it would. Let's talk about Biden. So I know the obvious elephant in the room is cognitively he's not there, but how do you think he did from an actual speaking perspective and getting the thoughts across?
You couldn't understand him.
Yeah.
I want listeners to keep in mind, because I'm older than you guys. Okay. These debates, Richard Nixon lost to John F. Kennedy because he wouldn't wear makeup.
Yeah.
It was the first televised debate. Think about that. It wasn't about substance because he didn't wear makeup. Okay. Fast forward, George Bush Sr. took so much crap in one of the debates because he looked at his watch and he lost the debate because of it. So I just want to put that in perspective from all of you. Many of especially the old school people, the old school news people,
right,
just hearing his voice the first 5 seconds, he lost that debate because it was so raspy and so thin and you could barely understand him.
Right.
It's not always about substance with these debates. It's optics. It's everything. And you got articles that came out that talked about how Biden just stared off into space, how they should never have allowed a split screen, where you got Trump's face there and you got Biden staring off into La La Land. All those things matter. So you could say he lost the debate just on that.
Yeah. I'm trying to find, I saw something really funny on Reagan today debating about, because they brought up the age question. And Reagan said, they asked, hey, I'm completely paraphrasing here, but he's like, basically they said, with your age, are you cognitively okay? And he goes, I would never talk about my opponent's age.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
He said, I don't want his immaturity or his youth to affect his decisions. Like, in other words, he spun it like, I'm older and wiser because, and therefore he's younger and not as wise.
Right. Yeah. It was funny, but it goes to show, there's a standard, and I don't think Biden even met that standard on Thursday. Now, from an actual speaking perspective, I think one thing that hurt him a lot was I think the time actually hurt him. One, because of the stuttering, and people are going to go, oh, he's got a stutter. That wasn't a stutter. I hate to break it to you. That's not a stutter. The three things that really hurt him was, I think he forgot the difference between the questions that were 2 minutes and the questions that were 1 minute. Because he gave Trump one of the biggest layups I've ever seen about Medicaid. Yeah. That one where he's like, yeah, you beat it to death. Like, you can't be giving Trump layups like that. He's too witty. The second one that really hurt him was where he started talking about like brothers and sisters R-wording their friends or whatever, other siblings. So he went off the rails. That was the one that really hurt, when he's talking about immigration. And then the other one was when he said that the Border Patrol, this was the real killer, where he said Border Patrol endorsed me. Now, the reason that was the real killer was because you can have fact checkers that are going to go over this stuff all this week, whatnot. In real time, the Border Patrol posted on Twitter, we did not endorse this guy. So you can talk about Trump's lies, whatever you want to say. But in real time, Biden got caught lying by the people that he's lying about. Right. So it's stuff like that I think really hurt him, besides just the stuttering and how he was speaking and all that stuff.
It makes him look foolish, like when he makes the Charlottesville, and Trump has to literally stand there and say, you built your whole last campaign on that. And they just came out last week with Snopes that said that would never happen. Trump never said that. Yeah. Which, as people who have looked at it and knew that for years before Biden even got in the basement, it's frustrating to be at this point. And still the man's lying about it. Yeah. So you chalk it up to, he's cognitively impaired. They're going to get away with it because they're going to say, listen, big picture, don't worry about what Biden said and how he said it. Just look at him. Yeah. That's the whole point. Didn't matter what Biden said. He's a mess.
Now, one thing you mentioned on the phone, which I was very curious about, that was the first debate we've ever had that had commercial breaks. So we thought it was because Biden needed to sit. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he sat once during that. I don't think he sat during those. I
don't know.
Yeah. Not that it really matters. But what's funny is that when you look at the end of that, Trump just walks off. It's fine because someone actually got a video of it. Jill really had to help him down. Yeah. And the big kicker is that Michelle Obama denounced Biden. She was like, yeah, I can't endorse Biden after that. That was interesting to see.
Yeah.
So.
Well, her husband's sticking by him.
Yeah.
For now.
Which is wild, but that's besides the point. So I think we kind of covered everything debate-wise of what we think, unless you have any other points to add.
No, not really. Yeah. Like I said, I just think you can't tell Trump what to do. I don't know that they'll be, we can talk about this, but it doesn't look like, it's not easy to remove Biden. Yeah. Okay? But I think the bigger question, and I give many of the liberal journalists who posed this and who said, forget about the presidential election. We need him out of office now. Yeah.
So real fast, before we go into that, Mom, I did want to talk about the post CNN analytic view or whatever you want to call that. Did you watch any of that?
No, I switched around to another channel just because I didn't want to see CNN on top of CNN. I
Yeah.
wanted a different viewpoint. Not that the
Well,
other ones were giving a
yeah.
viewpoint, but
Well, let me tell you, if you didn't watch it, I thought that they were going to go in there and they were going to say Biden did such a great job. I don't know if you saw any of it. They had probably about 8, maybe 9 panelists up there. Mom, every single one, I don't want to say sided with Trump, but they were like, oh, this is way worse than we thought. And what's wild about that is I never expected to see that from CNN, right? You have, those rhino conservatives, whatever, on there who are like, yeah, we got to get this guy out. And that's coming from CNN, right?
right. But, Chris, you got to take a step back, okay? And you have to put your take off the naive hat. They do know what goes on.
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself, why did they allow that train wreck to happen? Yeah, there are some that didn't, and now I think they can't hide it anymore. And their only answer for their viewers, because it's always about the money, it's always about the ratings, is we got to act shocked.
Right.
We got to act like we didn't know this. This is unbelievable. They knew.
Yeah,
Shame
yeah,
on them.
absolutely. But I'm saying this because this kind of goes into what you're about to talk about, which is the fact, I'm not going to pull up any articles for this one because all your articles were kind of very similar, except for the
a lot of
two.
them, yeah.
But now we talk about getting Biden out. And I think what CNN was trying to do was create that opening for Democrats all over the country to go, yeah, we do need this guy out. How do we do it? So I know that's probably the biggest thing that Democrats behind the scenes are talking about right now. How do we get this guy out of office and put someone else in? So I wanted your thoughts on that because you sent me the articles on how they're going to do it and how virtually impossible it is. So
It is.
I'm just going to grab water. You keep going.
Right. Well, I mean, I go back with what comes into my head is we reap what we sow. Okay, so they back themselves into a real corner here. You've got Joe Biden with his issues, and he's already been chosen in 50 states by his delegates to be the next candidate for the Democratic Party. Now, how do you back away from that and not look like election deniers, which is what they've been accusing Trump of since the 2020 election? They'd be doing the exact same thing with their delegates.
Right.
The real question is, if you're unfit to run for president in the next election, how can you be commander in chief right now? So you're supposed to, it's supposed to be tough to remove him from office. But the Dems can do it if they really. They've changed court rules and laws in the past to do what they want to do. It's just interesting to see because here you are you got some calling for the 25th Amendment. Okay, what's the problem with that? Well, you're stuck with Kamala Harris. People like her even less in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
She would then become the incumbent.
Which
they would have to run her.
Even the Democrats don't want that.
Right. Because then what do? You switch in Gavin Newsom? Do you want to be the one to put the white male in for the black woman?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great point too. Yeah.
Many of them are saying that. You can't do that. And she's not going quietly.
And Newsom, although he might be a great, charming guy and speaker, he's got the worst track record in California. People left California during COVID because of that guy.
You're talking Hillary, Gavin Newsom, Whitmer, in Michigan, wow. Of all people. Those are your three main talk about right now. White woman, white male. That's your Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So they pushed to put in a woman of color as a vice president. Nobody liked her. She wasn't qualified. She lost to him in the Democratic primary. And now they're stuck with her. But on top of that, based on their rules, and you can't just switch it that easily, 3 states, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Georgia, you can't change it now. They will not let you pull him. The only way is if he dies, or I believe if he decides not to run. And in some states, it might be Texas or South Carolina, I'm not sure. If he decides his name's not to run, his name stays on the ticket, but you can't vote for him.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Lose that state. Yeah. So they really made a mess of this by trying to, hide it. I guess my thought is Biden must be really getting rapidly bad that they had to expose this and get him out.
Yeah. It seems like Jill's more of a handler than a wife at this point. I mean, there's so much footage to show that. Like the one a couple weeks ago where it looked like he was taking a shit standing up. Did you see that one? Yeah. But it's stuff like that where it's a man who's suffering with the early stages, maybe even mid stages of dementia. So yeah, you have to take that guy out. There's no.
This is somebody who has, we went through this with Donald Trump. You can't let this man have the codes to the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Okay? And in this case, they're right. This man could be deciding whether my son gets sent to war or not. Okay? I can't have that. I'm not going to have my kid die over in Ukraine because we had a demented guy in there and nobody wanted to take him out, a man with dementia. Nobody, it's just absurd. It can't happen. So, and it's a national security threat. And many of the, articles, the writers were saying, who is actually running the country? Because he's not.
There's no way.
We know.
Yeah, it's not possible. He's just a figurehead at this point. He's like Queen Elizabeth of.
Keep in mind, the Bidens are totally exposed if they're booted out of that White House. We all know they're corrupt and there's plenty of evidence for it. The only thing saving their asses is really not saving Hunter that much right now is the fact that he's in the White House. So when he's out, especially all the crap that they had done to Donald Trump.
Did you see? So I guess Hunter was at the debate or something, and he's walking out, and some reporter goes, "Was that your cocaine in the White House?" And he just goes, "Ah."
Oh, jeez.
Like you can see the smile on his face. He's like, "Ah."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's obvious. I mean, they're politicians. It's what they do, unfortunately. But
no, they're corrupt. They're corrupt. It's a corrupt family, and it's so corrupt that they tried to hide the fact, and they had the media supporting them for too long. And now, you know what? I say they'll get what they deserve.
Yeah.
You watch, they're going to try and break every law, bend every law. Hopefully there won't be, but they might try to assassinate this president just so they can fix this mistake. And it's a massive mistake. Okay?
Yeah.
So, frankly, shit on them. You get what you deserve. You put America in this mess. And now I got to worry about you because you want to secure your position and your power. Sorry, no. And frankly, they better figure it out because I don't want him running this country right now as it is. It's a security risk.
Yeah. No, I think a lot, as I said, a lot of Americans, and I'm sure people all over the world watching that, have a very different perspective now on Biden's presidency. Because unlike Trump, when Trump was president, you would see him every day on the news, like whatever he's.
I hope they have a different perspective on the media they've been watching, or that they haven't been paying attention. That's the biggest takeaway. You talk about fact checking, okay? Maybe Trump had some, hyperboles or whatever. I most of the stuff he said, most likely true. But we got whoppers coming out of Biden. He does it on the campaign trail. He does it, it's not hyperbole. Like, I'm the greatest ever. He throws these things out there, like the Border Patrol. Completely false. Not even a smidgen of like a certain percentage supported him.
Yeah.
Zero.
The border. Yeah. That was such a kick in the face. That was such a kick in the face to the Democratic Party.
The Charlottesville thing, I mean, he walked right into that. They just disputed that one.
Yeah.
And Trump mentioned the laptop. Naturally, Biden wasn't even paying attention. I think Trump's best line of the night was, "I don't understand what he just said."
That was so good. Yeah, I was just about to say that.
It was true, and it wasn't cruel. It was absolutely true. So that's what the takeaway for the American people after they saw that debate is, number one, we need to get somebody running our country pretty damn fast. I don't think we can wait till November or January, technically. And number two, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
How is it that they knew it on, Pancake 101 for the last 4 years? How come they knew it and I didn't know it? Or how come all these other people that are not laughing, but saying, see, we told you so. How come you didn't know that? And you can't say, well, it's Trump's fault. I didn't know. Baloney. Okay. Start looking at your media sources. Start looking at these people that have been lying to you, let alone who's ever been running this White House and, keeping this information from everybody that it is just that bad.
My favorite is all the celebrities on Twitter now trying to defend Biden, like freaking Mark Hamill, right? The guy from Star Wars. He's a big, right? I'm sure you know how crazy he is. But he posted something about how well Biden did and how one's a convicted. I would rather a slow guy over a convicted felon or whatever, usually when he posts stuff, there's like a couple liberals on there that are like, oh, I agree. Like, you go, Mark. The whole thing is just slander all the way down. Not a single positive comment on what he said. Because even, like, as I said, and I'll just we'll keep saying it, even my Democratic friends who are very anti-Trump for his policies and who he is, whatever, even they say that definitely swung it one way, where I think I need to vote a certain way now because of what that was. So my other question is, did you see any of Robert Kennedy Jr.'s little debate there?
No, I didn't watch it.
So he did a debate.
Like a side interview? Was
He did kind of a side interview answering all the same questions, right? And he kind of did it in real time with those guys. So basically, the way they kind of did it was, I think it was right after, was he would listen to them talk and then he would give his answer.
Okay.
Interesting way of doing it. Now, here's the problem with RFK Jr. Now, I like him. I think he's a good candidate. Independent, which is why he'll probably never win, and definitely in this election. Maybe if he goes one way in the next election, if possible. I like him. I can't handle his voice. I'm sure he's a nice guy, all that stuff, and I would love to talk to him. It's tough, even for me, and I can talk to anyone, as you know. So that voice, I don't know what it is. I'm not making fun of him. It's just something about it. It's like I almost cringe because I think he's hurting himself. You know?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a vaccine injury. I think he claimed it was from a vaccine injury that he's developed this throat issue.
Yeah, before COVID and stuff, not the vaccine. It was way before
so.
COVID.
I can't remember what
he's got.
He was always like that.
Yeah, it's like a paralysis of the vocal cords or something like that.
Right, and unfortunately, like I was saying, these debates, he's going to lose with independents. There are people out there that they don't care about substance.
Yeah.
They care about style. And that's why Biden lost in the first 2 minutes he was out there. That's why, George Bush lost because he looked at his watch.
Yeah,
Literally looked at his watch.
That's why it's tough to say, let's put Robert Kennedy Jr. up there and try and compete with those two when obviously he's mentally capable, way more than our current president. But when you hear his voice, it's like, oh man, it's tough to listen to this for 2 minutes. And again, I know it sounds very rude, but I would challenge anyone to try and listen to him for 2 minutes, even if he has great policies. Again, if it came down to him and Biden, of course, I'd vote for him, of course. But it's just very hard because I know if we're talking optics and how other countries perceive us, they're going to see him as, what is this? Is this guy talking in a different language? But yeah.
Well, most world leaders, believe it or not, they already know.
Yeah, of course, because he's a Kennedy.
Know him. Yeah.
It's just tough.
We've also seen him in the world stage, and I'm sure he's met them, et cetera, et cetera. But
absolutely,
yeah, no, it's not even about that. It's about how the American people perceive him, and many of the moderates or people who are not in tune to the policies, they gotta go. I can't listen to him. I don't.
Yeah, and he has great policies. He's probably the most independent, like right down the middle guy we've had in a while. So, yeah.
Well, I don't agree with everything that Robert Kennedy stands for because he is.
But you're not supposed to.
Usually Democratic. He is the original or closer to the original Democratic platform. Like his uncle, the president, would be shocked at where the Democratic Party is right now.
Absolutely.
As would his father, because that just wasn't what it was back then. Everyone voted for Kennedy. Even conservative young people voted for Kennedy back then. He was young, alive, vibrant, and the platform was not as extreme as it is today.
Yeah.
So, he still resonates with that. And that's why Biden looks extreme compared to Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah. It's just that I wish there was something he could do about that voice. I have to believe that now there's some kind of medical treatment, but I'm sure he has the funds to get it. So if he hasn't gotten it, that tells me that there's no cure for whatever he has.
Can't use it yet.
Yeah. So it's a shame, but because I do think he would make a great candidate after Trump's gone. But
well, I thought he was an interesting vice president pick.
Yes, I agree.
Because the voice is not, it's not a primary thing. You don't need it, but unfortunately, you have to support the president and his policies, and that's not necessarily the case with Kennedy and Trump. I think there's some areas it's too wide a difference. Do
we know yet who Trump's vice president going to be? Is it JD Vance, or
no,
has he still not announced it?
No, I haven't heard an announcement yet. I have no idea. I mean, there's a big announcement on Monday about his immunity from from the Supreme Court. So I don't know if he's kind of waiting for that. I'm not sure what there's a lot of stuff that's been boom, 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 the last 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
uh
It's
I don't
about
know.
time he announces it. I mean, we're really getting into crunch time here, but I guess he kind of bought himself quite a bit of time with that.
I don't know. The irony is right now he could sit back and wait because
Yeah.
we still don't know who the Democratic candidate for president's going to be.
Fair point. Yeah.
That's probably a bigger issue for the American people right now. Who's it going to be versus who's Trump's vice president?
Yeah, it scares me who they're going to put in. My guess is they'll put in that Pennsylvania governor. No,
Ohio.
no.
Man.
No. I'm talking Biden for the
Oh,
what's the everyone's
Whitmer?
talking about the Pennsylvania. He's a
Fetterman?
Senate? No, not Fetterman. God no.
From Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
For what? His take over his
Yeah,
presidency?
take over the presidency. What? It'll come to me. There's a guy that a lot of Democrats like. He's not the worst pick.
Shapiro?
Yes, thank you. Shapiro.
Oh,
Yeah. A lot of people like that guy, and I don't mind him. He's not the worst. If I
Well.
had to. It's either that or Fetterman. And even Fetterman's like, I think he made like a weird conservative post the other day where he was like something about
yeah. Fetterman's been doing quite the dance lately. Saying a lot of anti-Biden, anti-democratic platform
Yeah.
things. So, and then he gets in a car accident with his family, and he was driving, and they're saying, why was he driving with a stroke? And I don't know, whatever. No, I don't think that's a tricky one. I don't think you could just pull somebody from somewhere. I mean, Whitmer has more tension. Michigan's a bigger state. A lot of it also has to do with donors, where they're going to get money, who's going to support her financially, who can afford. Can you afford to lose Shapiro in Pennsylvania? Because remember, Pennsylvania leans it's only purple because of the 2020 election. For the most part, Pennsylvania was always a red state. If you pull Shapiro out of there, now you put that state in jeopardy for the party. Because it's not just about the presidency. People have to remember you got to worry about the House, the Senate, right? There's a real chance that the Senate could switch. It's tied right now,
Mhm.
right? So you just need one or two switching one way or the other, and they've got another majority there. If Trump wins, right, the vice president now becomes the deciding vote.
Yeah.
That's a Republican if Trump wins. And then same thing with the House. The House has a slim majority right now. It should be a bigger majority, but they keep voting people out, and people keep quitting and leaving and causing, all sorts of headaches with from a voting perspective. So all that matters, and you got to be careful where you pull people from, because you could put those other houses in jeopardy.
Do you think, this is slightly off topic, but do you think that with the wins of Boebert, and even though she changed districts, and the loss of Bowman, do you think we're going to start seeing kind of a little bit of a domino effect here with the more Republican candidates winning their districts and stuff? Because I do think we're going to see a kind of a little bit of a sway here. Or do you think it's not going to affect this? The debate's not going to affect this at all.
Well, as I said, this is a down ticket issue as well. It's not just about the presidency. When you screw around with the head of the party or the incumbent who's running, that can have an impact, especially when you deal with, let's face it, certain Republicans are always going to vote for the Republican candidate. Very rarely are going to say, this Republican's so bad, I'm voting for the Democrat. Same thing's true with the Democrats. I mean, look at the Hollywood people.
Yeah.
Biden could shoot them in the foot, they'd still say they love him. That's just how they are. They're never going to change, and who knows how sincere either side is. You're always looking at those middle of the road people. And when you rock the boat, and when you start fact checking and say, they put in the guy who's demented, he's throwing out stuff out there that's not even true. And apparently the stuff that he ran on and swore to us about 4 years ago were all lies. The laptop, the Charlottesville. So when they're indifferent either way, it's like, I got nothing to lose. But then again, can I trust the guy running as a Democrat in my state if he supported Biden all these years?
Yeah, Mom, can you explain the Charlottesville situation? Because even I don't know that full story. Everyone knows about the laptop hoax. What's the Charlottesville
There
hoax,
was
if you will.
before the election in 2020, there was a riot or whatever in the Charlottesville Park. It was down in South Carolina, and Trump came out. It was a riot. Some people had not had Nazi signs. It was a protest that turned into a riot in a park in Charlottesville. Trump came out and made a statement, and it was on rambling, typical Trump. Good comment, basically about there were good people on both sides, but you know, Nazism, whatever, we don't tolerate, blah blah blah. So the media naturally edited what he said. Oh, he said Nazis were good people, and that became the hoax. And that's what one of the many things
Gotcha.
that Biden ran on everywhere he went. He called Nazis good people. You want that as president? And Trump would go out and say, I never said that. It needs to be. So how many years later, finally the media, Snopes, comes out and says, yeah, it's true. Trump never said that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a whole conspiracy to that. I thought that was just a fact, like a simple fact check.
No, it's the same thing as J6, where he said, go peacefully to protest. Well, they all edited that out.
The problem with that one is Jack Dorsey, well, whoever owned it at the time and had control. The problem with that one and why it's never going to be able to be provable is because unlike the Snopes one, you can go back, look at video records. You can't find that tweet anymore. So it's really whoever has.
I just saw it recently. I just literally saw it.
I've seen 8 different versions of that tweet. I do not know which one is real. And I'm pretty good at spotting what's real and what's not. Yeah, so again, I can assume Trump's right. He's the one that wrote the damn thing. But again, from a perspective of if I'm CNN trying to take this guy down, he'll never be able to prove that. Right, because we can't go back to Twitter, go through the records because everything was deleted.
You know what? People said that about Charlottesville, and Snope, for whatever reason, wound up just recently came out of the blue and said, "You know what? He did actually."
Right, but I'm sure, but there's got to be some video evidence to that or something, right? The problem with Twitter is they wiped everything. Everything. Yeah. That's what happens with a deleted account or a blocked account. Yeah. I'm sure there's people. Yeah. Right? Well, they've done that with everyone.
It's out there somewhere. I'm sure people videotaped it, that whoever was there. I'm sure there's other, but
yeah, we've never really seen it.
If somebody posted, they're going to say, oh, this isn't legitimate. Both sides will say something, right?
Yeah. I did that to my friend John, my liberal friend, who he always says, no, that peaceful protest thing doesn't, like, it's BS. So I showed him 8 different tweets and I told him which one's the right one. And he was like, ah.
Well, Trump made up a good common sense comment about, he called our service people at D-Day ceremonies suckers and losers.
Yeah.
Right? That was another one of these things that the media, some of them, pushed. Trump called them suckers and losers in front of generals and blah, blah, blah. And even Trump, here's logic. Why would I do that? Why would I call veterans standing there with military behind me suckers and losers? It doesn't even make sense. And sometimes, you know what? That's true. I mean, I don't need video evidence. Everybody there would have been outraged. Right. Some of them, a couple of them, one of the guys he fired because he was like he said, he was terrible. He had to fire him because he said Trump called them suckers and losers. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
And even for Trump, that's totally
and one out of I think it's 19.
50,
yeah. So right. Biden pulls out this one guy who said, you said this, when 19 other people were like, you never said that. Right. So right. You believe one guy that already.
And again, we go back to the media. I wish people would wake up. And that's, for what it's worth, that was the other thing Trump honed in on. Fake news. Okay? They mocked him for that. They said he was a nut job. He said it all the time, and he still says it. Now it's really bad. Now it's lawfare, and they're mocking him for that. And we're going to see in a couple of years. It's exactly right. And it's unfolding. And I think the debate was the coup de grace of wake up, people. He's been telling you this man is demented, and you're not getting it from the news. They've been hiding this from you. They dance around it. They edit clips. They tell you what you want to see. Now they have the nerve to turn around and say, we didn't know. We're as shocked as you are. Mm-hmm. You're the media. You're supposed to know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else to add to that. I didn't want to do any other articles because I knew this was going to be probably the biggest topic. So we didn't quite hit an hour. It's not much else to go by. I think we hit pretty much everything.
No.
That's right. Sorry, I forgot about that. Let me grab those.
I was more interested in the Supreme Court rulings.
1 second,
Okay.
let me pull it up. So which one do you want to start with, the Chevron case or the?
I'm only going to talk about two of them. We had the Facebook or the First Amendment ruling at the beginning of the week, which did not go, in my opinion, in favor of the First Amendment.
Mom, you didn't send me that one. The only ones I have here are the Supreme Court strikes down on Chevron and then the Justice rule for January 6th. So which two? The Chevron one, right?
The other one I'm talking about, I didn't send you an
Oh,
article.
okay, gotcha.
That was the coercion. Basically, the Supreme Court said that,
Wait, hold on. Which one are you talking about right now?
This was the one I didn't post. I forget what it was called. What was it called? I can't think of the name of it. But basically, it was the White House was pushing people. Oh, Missouri versus Murphy. The White House was coercing places like Facebook and Twitter to censor information. And the Supreme Court ruled that they kicked it back basically and said, based on what you're telling us, there's not enough standing for us to decide. So we're sending it back because you need more evidence to make your case that they actually were censoring. I'm not even going to respond to that because it's just absurd. But okay. The two other ones that came out, and like I said, Monday is the immunity one. That's a big one. Did President Trump have immunity in terms of the Mar-a-Lago documents and classified documents and whatnot? They're going to rule on that. Either they'll rule on the full scope or he had partial immunity, whatever. Okay. The Fisher case. Well, why don't I do the Chevron one? Which one do I do first? Okay, so the Fisher ruling. The Fisher ruling was the J6. All right.
Okay.
This is important. It's a law that bars the obstruction of an official proceeding. Okay. So what the Department of Justice did to the individuals on January 6th, even the ones who just walked in, took a picture and went out, they added on this statute, or they applied this ruling that they obstructed an official proceeding. Therefore, their sentencing adds 20 extra years just for walking in, taking a picture and coming out, or for somebody who did something more damaging, right? So this is also 2 of the 4 counts that Jack Smith is waging against Donald Trump, that he obstructed a official proceeding, and they tack on this extra thing. Okay. 300 people are now going to have a reduced sentence because the Supreme Court said, no, that is not what that statute says. It says, or it actually applies to, if you destroy documents in an official proceeding. It came from an old case called Enron, where the company destroyed all this evidence and papers, so they created this ruling. For that reason, they tried to use that. When it first went before the court, the Judge Nichols at the time says, no, you can't use that law for this. You can't add 20 years over this. That's not right. Okay. The Department of Justice appealed it, and the appeal court said, oh, no, you can. And that's why so many of these defendants either got extra time. Some committed suicide, by the way, because they were looking at 20 plus years in prison, right? And some of them, have been waiting to hear. So now the Supreme Court has ruled, no, officially you can't use that. 300 people are now going to be able to reapply and say, listen, time served, get me out. This is ridiculous. That's a huge win. Okay. The other one, which to me is the coup de grace this week, more so than anything. And I'll say this one goes far beyond this presidency. It's called the Chevron case. So we had a law, the Chevron document, where when you go to court, especially for corporations or certain situations, if the judge doesn't understand the impact of the ruling or the law that comes out, they would then defer to a regulatory agent. So say, for instance, it was something about water, and I'm keeping this simple, but it was a water issue. And whatever the judgment was, the judge didn't understand it. He would then turn and say, let the EPA decide what the law should be or how it should be interpreted.
Right.
And because of this, all these different agencies have been putting out basically legislation or making rules and regulations that have crippled businesses, crippled individuals, and whatnot. And what we've had a problem with is that they're not legislation. Because of our Constitution, the only one who can make the laws is the legislative branch, okay? The executive branch enforces it, and the judicial branch, they interpret that law.
Right.
And when you defer it to a non-elected official, I can't vote the head of the EPA out because he's crushing my civil rights or my rights. Understand?
Yep.
They're appointed. So that has been a big problem. We call that the administrative state. It's become the fourth branch of government where there's so many regulations involved, and they have a hand in so many things that the Supreme Court turned around and said, yeah, no more. The judge now needs to make that decision on that law. They are not to kick it to the regulatory agency. They can get their advice to interpret it. They can have them explain it. They can use, friends of the court, they call it, to help make that decision. Okay, so this is huge because I don't know how many people realize the reach of these individuals that we don't get to elect, that are legislating things indirectly for us, that they really have no right to do based on our Constitution. It's as though somebody created like a pseudo president and said, well, he's actually running things, or he's going to run military things, but you don't get to vote for him. And that's why this is so important and so far reaching. And I think this is why, more than even the Biden situation, the liberals are going crazy because you've killed a good chunk of the deep state.
Yeah.
We've got a ways to go, but that administrative state was running and that's when we talk about big government. So when you hear people say, oh, Republicans are for smaller government, Democrats are bigger government, whatever. It's not just big government, like there's so many people that we pay for to run the government. It's not that. It's how extensive the government is.
To put this into like more personal forms, isn't this like when you have to get building plans on your house and like some guy has to come over and check it out, be like, I guess I'll approve it. Isn't that kind of like that? Like, how does this affect the average consumer? Like when you want to get rid of a puddle in or a swamp in your backyard, the EPA has to come and stuff like that. That's like how
there were literally cases where the EPA decided that any running water, blah, 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 blah. And they made it sound like it was for, that they took the law and they said it was for, you all thought it was for corporations.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they were going after individuals and their properties.
Right.
And they went into court and they said to the court, I can't have a pond on my property now. Now it's under the control of the EPA. And based on these statutes and the interpretation, because the EPA said, well, court, we really do need to regulate it because of blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And the court would defer to them, right? Now the Supreme Court is saying, no, you can't defer to them anymore. You have to make the judgment based on the knowledge of the situation, blah, 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 blah. You can't allow these agencies, because I didn't elect that EPA official. I didn't give him or her the right to start implementing your rules in my community when it's beyond that reach. They're supposed to work with the laws that our elected officials create. They can't then make their own laws and decide, you know what, I'm going to take the law that Congress made and I'm going to expand it now to puddles in people's backyards. No. So fortunately, the Supreme Court said no more. They also had a similar ruling with the SEC. So that's the Securities Exchange Commission. So for people who, and this could happen to people we know who have, say, their own venture capital fund, or they have their own, mutual funds, or they work in certain industries. They were being brought in to court and, it was a civil trial versus a jury trial and blah, blah, blah. So the SEC was controlling how that can be run. And now the court said, no, you can't do that anymore. You have to have a certain type of trial. I'm not going to go into all the details, but you have to have a certain type of trial. There has to be a certain procedure. You can't just go in anymore, SEC, and say, you know what, you're fine, fraud, you're going to jail. You can't do that.
Good.
So that's another one of those, we call it the alphabets, right?
Yep.
The EPA, the SEC, the blah, blah, blah. And they were getting too big in terms of the control they had over American citizens who had the right to elect officials to make the laws. If I don't like the laws they make, I can cast my vote and try and get them out. I can't do that with the head of SEC. I can't do that with the head of the EPA.
That was a lot to take in. I won't lie to you. That was a lot. Our younger viewers are like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Take my word for it. This is far more reaching for you guys, especially going forward. I mean, it's important, the presidential debate and whatnot, but I was more interested in the Supreme Court's ruling.
Right. Well, they
because
say
that's going to change the government in
yeah,
general.
they say that the presidential. They say this. I don't say this, but they say that the presidential debate doesn't affect you, or presidential. Whoever wins the presidency is not as important or affects you as much as your state by state campaigns and stuff. So
They call it the down ticket, right?
yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Mom, you hit me with so much knowledge there. My brain, like the gears, just kind of start slowing down. I was like, "What the fuck?
It's a
I need a
beautiful
nap."
thing. It's a beautiful thing what our forefathers, founding fathers, came up with, in the sense that, so go back to what Trump was saying about Roe v. Wade. That should never have been decided on the federal level. Even people who were pro-abortion back then said, they're creating a right that didn't exist. And that's what they've been arguing for 51 years. You heard Biden say that. It's been a law for 51 years. Well, guess what? Slavery was a law for a long time too. And that was not a good thing. Okay. You put it in the hands of the state. Let the people in the state decide what they want to do. And that's always was the balance with our forefathers and for our government. You want to give the people as much control as possible. We run the government. The government doesn't run us. So that's why down tickets, like you're saying, your mayor, your town council, your senator, your congressman or congresswoman, those are the closest to you in your state, right? They represent you on the federal level, but you also have people making laws right in your community. And that's always the goal. As citizens, you should always have that goal whenever possible. I want as much control with my vote as possible. I want to be able to say as much as I can. When we lose that, that's when we start to see what's been happening. Our government's been growing and getting out of control. And that's why many people are now, especially on the conservative side or on the Republican side, are saying, let's bring that back to the people. Let them have the vote. Let them decide. Why does it have to be at the federal level and a blanket for everybody? Because what they want in New Jersey, they may not want in California. I don't want the crap that's going on in California. That state is being run into the ground. But that's the beauty of, let those citizens vote their governor out if they're not happy. And if they like it, let them live with it.
It's funny how every Democratic person I know even calls California a shithole. Verbatim. It's getting really bad in California.
Yeah.
And no getting better in the foreseeable future. That's what's scary.
Well, and then that's the person they're picking to run.
Who's trying to run for president now?
A possible replacement for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Because it's a big state. It's got a lot of money, right? It's a very big state. But good luck trying to sell him to other parts of the country, like the middle of the country.
Yeah. I don't know. But all right, Mom, we hit that hour 10 mark, so I'm happy. I think
I'd
that
like
was
to
a good
say happy 4th of July, right? That'll come out on When's this come out? Wednesday?
No, this comes out Monday. So 4th of July is.
Oh, you had a nice 4th of July. Oh,
Yeah.
this coming Monday.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
so
comes out Monday.
Yes. Okay. Happy
So,
4th of July to everybody this week. Holiday week. Hence my flag in the back.
The Betsy Ross flag or Rose?
Betsy Ross flag,
yeah.
yes. 13 colonies in the stars.
You know how many people are going to look at that and go, oh, that's the that's the Confederate flag, just because it's different?
No, it's not.
There's a lot of people that think that those two are the same. That's how scary. That's what they're not learning in school. I don't even think I remember what the Confederate flag looks like. It's been a while.
It's the X.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really support. It's a piece of history, but I don't support the Confederate flag just because it was not a proud time in our country's history to be divided and have a civil war. But
yeah,
I saw a great line from somebody about reparations. Everyone's talking about, we got to have reparations for slavery.
And their answer was, go ahead. I think I know what the answer is.
600,000 people died and about $7 trillion. There's your reparations right there.
I think that was Charlie Kirk that said that.
Was it? Okay.
I think, yeah.
Might have been. I've been looking at a lot of stuff lately, but and that's exactly true. We've had reparations in this country. Everybody's got a family. If they've been in this nation, they've had somebody who died in the Civil War, if their family's been there that long. So don't tell me that blood hasn't been shed and people haven't paid a price. No. So sadly, that's why I'm not keen on the Confederate flag, but I do understand why it's important to people in the South. It's their history, but
yeah, well,
they're flying it.
Either way, I think we covered a lot. I think we answered most of the questions that people had on what we thought of the debate and more. So we can end it there. The only things I have to promote this week was kind of weird. So check out a couple things. So the podcast last week, which was you and me. Nancy was 2 weeks ago. So that one was you and me with the Dr. Disrespect stuff and things like that. Then on Thursday was Chained Together. And then tomorrow is going to be the Chained Together speed run. So that'll be out by the time this comes out. And then we're going to finish up the Elden Ring DLC on Monday. And then Code Veronica on Tuesday. And then I think we're smooth sailing into the rest of summer. Steam Summer Sale is going on right now. So make sure you get those games that you you want for on sale. So, that's pretty much it. Social media down below, promo codes down below, Discord down below, other stream links down below. And hopefully I will see you guys on Monday. And you will see Mom next week. So.